Welcome, everyone, and we know how we get started on 1, 2, 3.
I'm ready.
All right, guys. Good morning, my remarkable people. Today, I want to speak about something that Tony Robbins teaches a lot about. It is about patterns. Tony Robbins says that success, it leaves clues. And I love that idea because it reminds us that results are rarely random. Our lives are full of patterns. Patterns in how we think, patterns in how we react, how we communicate, how we handle our stress, patterns in what we do when things are going well and maybe when it's not. The interesting part is that most of us don't even realize how many different patterns are running throughout our day. We think we're making brand new decisions, but often we're just repeating the same old pattern. Something happens, we feel something, we tell ourselves a story, and then we respond the way we usually respond. As a matter of fact, a lot of people that are on this call right now would probably say that I'm pretty predictable, that I react or do things over and over again. But we actually all are similar in that nature, especially as we become adults. Well, Tony Robbins teaches that if you want to change your life, one of the first things we have to do is interrupt the pattern. Because if we keep thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotion, taking the same action, you're probably just going to repeat exactly the same result. Now, some of the time, we want to keep those things. The things that are working, we don't want to stop or interrupt that. But the things that maybe might be off, that's what we focus on. Now, it sounds very simple. Now, let's think about how often we do this. Someone maybe doesn't call us back. Immediately, as humans, we always think they're not interesting. And now, what happens is we stop following up. That's a pattern. Something difficult might happen during our day. And all of a sudden, we go, here we go again. And I'm going to pick on the name Susie. Here we go again. Susie dropped the ball. At that moment, maybe our energy drops. We become frustrated. Guess what? That's a pattern. We get a great opportunity here that instead of getting excited, we immediately start thinking about everything that could go wrong. Well, that's also a pattern. And patterns are powerful because they become very familiar, even when they're not helpful. Sometimes we stay in that pattern not because it's good for us, but because it's familiar and it's known. Our brains love familiar things. It's safe. So even if that frustration when Susie makes that mistake becomes familiar, well, we just repeat the same cycle. Stress becomes familiar. Self-doubt becomes familiar. Maybe avoiding something, well, that's what I always do, and I don't get in trouble for doing it. Nothing terrible happens when I do it. So guess what? I'll just keep doing it. And that's why change requires awareness. You cannot interrupt a pattern that we don't recognize. So here's the question for everyone this morning. What pattern in your life keeps creating a result that maybe you don't want? Maybe we procrastinate until the pressure becomes unbearable. Maybe we avoid that conversation that maybe is a little difficult. Maybe we overthink things before making a decision. Maybe we start out really strong, but then we lose our consistency when things don't go exactly as we expect. Maybe you allow one bad moment to change the energy of the entire day. Maybe we tell ourselves, well, this is just who I am. But what if it's not who you are? What if it's simply a pattern that you have practiced over your life? That's a very different conversation. Because if it's a pattern, guess what? We get to change it. Tony Robbins also speaks a lot about changing your state, your physiology, your focus, your language, because our state influences the meaning that we give things. And the meaning we give things influence what our next step is. Think about it. If you're slumped over and you're tired and you're staring at the floor saying, this is never going to work, guess what? Your body and your mind are reinforcing the same thing that your mind is saying. But what if you stand up? What if you start moving? What if you take that deep breath? What if you change your posture and you ask a different question of, oh, I have to make sales calls. But instead say, who do I get to help today? Those little interruptions, they matter. Because the fastest way to change our pattern is often to break the sequence before it reaches its usual ending. We'll give you an example. Imagine you have a pattern of avoiding an uncomfortable phone call. You see that person's name comes up on your phone. Your stomach and your nerves start to tighten. You think, I'll do this later. I don't want to deal with it. And then it becomes tomorrow, and then it becomes next week, and now the problem's getting bigger and bigger. That pattern might happen in a second. So interrupt it. See the name, feel the hesitation, and then say, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, pick up. Do something different that breaks that old pattern. This is how we start to create new ones. And the same applies to leadership. Maybe every time someone brings you a problem, your pattern and automatic is to solve it. You feel important. You know the answer. You jump in to save the day. But if you do that every time, what pattern are you creating for your team? They bring you the problems. You provide the answer. They bring you the next problem. You answer again. What if instead you interrupted that pattern and said, well, what do you think you should do? Now you're creating a whole new pattern. You're teaching thinking. You're building confidence. You're creating future leaders. That one small change can completely change the culture over time. Tony Robbins also teaches that we tend to move toward what we associate with pleasure, and we move away from things that cause us pain. That means that if we want to create the new pattern, you have to give it some meaning. If working out feels like punishment, believe me, you're going to avoid it. But if your movement means energy and strength and longevity and time with people you love, now it has meaning. If the sales call means rejection, you're going to avoid them. But if the sales call means connection, opportunity, abundance, helping someone, legacy for your family, it changes the entire emotional association. We are not only changing behavior, we're changing what the behavior means to all of us. And here's something else that I love about patterns. Good patterns actually compound. One morning walk becomes a routine. One follow-up call becomes a habit. One moment of gratitude becomes a different way of starting our day. One decision to encourage someone becomes your leadership. When we often think transformation requires some enormous breakthrough, sometimes it does, but more often it's simply a better pattern repeated long enough to change and become a habit. So today, I want you to identify 3 things. First, what pattern do we want to get rid of that's no longer serving? Second, where can I interrupt it? Not after the pattern plays out. Where's the earliest moment that you can catch it? And third, what new pattern do I want to replace it with? Don't simply say I need to stop procrastinating. Instead, replace it with, when I notice myself avoiding something, I will take one action within 5 minutes. That's a new pattern. If you want to say, I need to stop thinking negative, instead say, when I hear myself complaining, I will ask, what is one thing I can do about this right now? So when fear shows up, you want to remind yourself of one difficult thing that you've already handled, because this is going to happen throughout your day. Don't let it freeze you. Create a new pattern. We have to stop thinking that our patterns are a personality. They're not. These patterns are rehearsed responses that have been built up throughout our entire lives. And anything we rehearse can be rehearsed and changed. So today, Pay attention to yourself. Notice the sequence. When something happens, what do you think? What do you feel? What do you say? What do you do next? That's your pattern. If you love it, let's build it up. If you don't love it, interrupt it. Because success leaves clues. So does frustration, confidence, fear, growth. Look at the pattern. Change what needs changing. Repeat what is working. And remember, your future is not built in that one giant decision. It's built in the patterns that you repeat when no one is paying attention. Change the pattern, and over time, you're going to change the result. Change the result often enough, and eventually, everything in your life changes. Wishing everyone a remarkable day. And today, interrupt one pattern that's keeping you from becoming who you know you were always meant to be. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Great message.